Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? Welcome to another edition of Unplugged. It's still Women's Month, and really, what we do in Women's Month is that we celebrate and encourage women to go further and do more. And this we do with our whole hearts, with our whole beings, practically every time we broadcast Unplugged. But you know what? We don't live on this earth alone. What about our fathers, our uncles, our brothers, our cousins, our nephews, our boyfriends, our husbands, our sons, our colleagues, our friends? What about them? How do we see them? How do we relate with them? Do we see them as people we love, people we should cherish, people we should try to understand better? Or are we engaged in mortal combat with them? I mean, there's this song I heard years ago by Womack and Womack. It's called Love Wars. Is that what we've been doing from generation to generation? Isn't it time to change the script or amend it somehow? I think it is. So, ladies in the house, I guess male bashing is one of our favorite sports. And for the men in the house, female blaming is easy to do. And the labels that we give ourselves will make it very easy for us to uh, or serve as obstacles that will prevent us from exploring our relationships better and finding better ways to work together. So today we want to explore those labels, those biases, and also we want to explore the possibility that there are biases against men. And those biases, perhaps if they're broken or examined a little bit more carefully, just perhaps we may start working our way towards a more equitable world. And to discuss this topic with me, and the topic for today is because men matter and they do matter. I'm sure you'll agree with me. And to discuss this topic is Ifeoma I, Idigbe. Ifeoma Idigbe is the founder and executive vice chairman of the Boys to Men edition, and I'll bring her online right now. Ifeoma, welcome.
Hello. Yeah.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Fantastic.
Just you.
Let's get on live on Instagram. So I'm going to invite you to
Okay.
join.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Let's do it.
Okay. Invitation sent.
That's, I haven't. It should. Is it? Yeah. It's a bit. Yeah. Yeah, it's on.
Okay. So
Okay. Thank you.
let me wait until I see you. Hi, Instagram.
Okay.
Hi, beauty.
I'm see. I can
See you.
see myself. I can see myself.
You can see yourself. I can see you. Okay, so
I can
maybe
see you as well, but it's dark. It's a bit dark, huh?
I can't even see you at all. So why don't you do this? You ask to join.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Ima. How are you? Good morning. Hi, Geraldine. Yes, if I is every year young. What can we do? Oh, it says voice to men is unable to join. Have you invited me? Have you asked to join? Actually, not invited me.
It's still processing or something.
It's processing.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe diesel is affecting the internet service providers as well.
Okay, I'm inviting again. I'm inviting again.
Okay, I think that works.
Okay, then if you could put an earpiece on the other phone you're using, it will reduce the back feed. Yes.
No, it's the mic that's showing, not me. Yep.
Okay, fantastic.
That's
Please put
it.
an earpiece on the other
Can you
phone.
mute it? Or mute it
No,
rather.
no, just put an earpiece on the other phone that you're using for Instagram.
Yeah,
It
so
will.
I don't have a double. Okay. All right, that works.
Okay,
Done.
fantastic. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have this eternal love wars going on, and we want to talk about it. Now, let me just start with something that might seem like it's how would I call it? An oxymoron. You and I are founding trustees of what is arguably one of the biggest female-focused not-for-profits in Nigeria, Winbase. And
Yes.
hey, we established Boys to Men Foundation. What in your life's journey led you to this place?
To be honest, if I tell the story, it'll sound minding my business. And you're a person of faith, so you understand what I'm talking about. And I had this feeling that I should set up an organization to cater to men, to try to help them become the best they can be. And I just thought, I can't even cope with this right now. Set up an organization. I was minding my business. 2 years later, I'm again minding my business. And there's a voice in my head that says, I've asked you to do this and you haven't done it. If you don't want to do it, I'll ask somebody else to do it. Hey, you know what they say. When that kind of thing happens, you know that it's time to run the race. And it was as simple as that. I didn't sort of sit up and say, oh, I really want to set up something for men. But I will say that in the process of us working in Wimbys to change the trajectory for women, it did strike me that as women get better, what are we going to do with men? Because all of us need to get better. It's not about, and I remember that Austin Okera even said it when he gave the keynote address at one of our conferences, that let's not get to a point where we now have to see that the men become disadvantaged. And so I think, in a way, a second thing to that would be trying to maintain a certain balance, that whilst we're raising women, we're not dropping men, because that seems to me to be happening. Because even in parenting girls, it's a whole different ball game. So it's really a combination of those two things. So it wasn't something that I rejected outright when the thought came to me, even though it wasn't something that I thought of by myself.
Okay, that's a very interesting comment. As we're raising women, we should not let the men fall through the cracks. Very important. I'm a mother of one daughter,
Yeah.
and yes, we would not like the men that come into their lives to be those that fall through the cracks. And I mean, this morning on a prayer call, we talked about young men in a certain part of Nigeria who had gone to worship a certain deity. And we were
Yes.
reminded once again that these men, these young men, may not be our sons, may not be our brothers, may not be our cousins, but they're people who could and actually would have an impact on our children and our sons. So it's like saying they're all our children. They're all our children, whichever way we look at it.
Absolutely, who has a podcast, said that somebody asked her, would you date a man who is in a cult? And would you date a man who sort of goes to see deities to get things done? And she said it was a very difficult question for her to answer, because she was now saying that to her, the deity thing is a really fundamental thing, because it's spiritual. So to your point, absolutely. Is that what we want? Is that the kind of man we want to raise, first of all, as our sons? And is that the kind of son-in-law we want? So it's a double whammy. We can't ignore it at all.
We can't ignore it. We can't. So you have two books, one of which I've read. And guys, go look for her books. Sounds of silence from silence, musings and
Yes,
about men. You
yes.
know, then random poems, monologues, and
And
reflection.
reflections. Yes.
Yes, I think I've read the about men. Yeah, I haven't read the silence, the musings
So,
yet. But I read
Mm.
about men cover to cover, and it was a totally riveting conversation. I still get a feedback. I don't know if that's from you or you. Guys, please let me know. I'm experimenting with these really fine AirPods, as you can see. You know, I'm experimenting. So let me know if I should go back to my old school thing. You know, please just let me know if the sound is clear for you. Just let me know.
I,
Okay. So in the book I read, I was going to bring it here, but I forgot. You know, about men. I read that cover to
yes.
cover. They explore a range of male experiences and emotions, ostensibly from their point of view. Now, another question is: can women really truly understand what goes on and
Yes.
express in a man's mind? Can we?
Yes. Can that what? Sorry, I didn't hear that. The sound went off a
Can,
bit.
can women really understand what goes on in a man's mind and express it? Okay, I hear the sound is echoing a little bit. I don't know why.
That, no, I heard it. That's a good question because first of all, and I think that for me, first of all, we're human beings. Human beings have certain commonalities. How we express our thoughts may be different, but human beings, I believe that all human beings want to be loved. They want love. They want to be respected. It doesn't change. They want to feel they matter. Okay? Now the circumstances and the way they express it may be different. But I also find, how do psychiatrists, if you ask that question, how do psychotherapists, psychiatrists, how are they able to, whether male or female, how are they able to provide therapy to both men and women? So there's a fundamental understanding of human nature. And then you apply it to, very often, the rules that society has imposed and the definitions of masculine and feminine, which we all absorb. And so, for example, the world says that women can cry whenever they want to cry. And so we all feel, oh, I'm free to cry because I'm a woman. And the man feels, oh, say men don't cry, so I'm not free to cry, I'm a man. And so that influences the way in which you respond to things. And so if you come at it from that point of view, the fact that society has prescribed certain behaviors, certain roles, and certain reactions, things away, you begin to see the effect. So for a man that you say don't cry, if he wants to cry, he feels he's a sissy and there's something that's wrong with him. And it influences the way he's going to behave. So he may hit out in a different way. For a woman who is able to cry, she may not cry too much because she feels she's allowed to cry. So the idea of reticence may become foreign to her. And so unknowingly, we very often import the expectations of society as defined by our understanding of those expectations in our behavior. And it therefore clouds our clarity with regards to seeing each other. So for me, if you strip away those constraints and you ask yourself, how does a person feel when this happens to them? If somebody slaps you, man or woman, how do you feel, first of all? You might feel rage, you might feel upset, but you will ask yourself, why did this person slap me? So there's a commonality in our behavior, and it's really just exploring and exploiting those commonalities to see the human being behind. And because I have two sons in any event whom I raised, I've met a lot of men in my life, both as friends and even as just ordinary. If you date a person, you understand the person, you peel back the layers, you see their vulnerabilities. And so it really comes, we assume we don't know, but when we think about it and step back, we'll realize we know much more about the other gender than we might accept that we do.
Okay, fine. I'm going to press in on that, but I hear there's still an echo. I don't know if it's from you or me, but I'm going to
It's not
change
from
my
me.
Okay. I hope
Yeah,
this is much better. Okay. So we go old school for now. I hope this is much better for everybody. I can still hear an
paper
echo.
is
I have
also.
no idea what that.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes. I have discovered that in one of my lives, I'm a coach as well. I'm a coach as well, and I discovered that the way a man would answer me certain questions is very different from the way a woman would answer. I found that out. Yes, there's a commonality, but the way I would have to dig, you know, explore,
Mm.
create more awareness. It's like it's a thing of shame to reveal a vulnerability to a woman, you know. So that is an issue. But let's move on. Let's move on because we do have a certain framework that says women should react in a certain way. And in my language, ethic, there's something that they say one of from. That is, you're a woman only based on your the things that make you female.
Yeah,
Otherwise, a strong
yeah,
woman is called a man. You know,
yes,
which I find a bit offensive. Maybe me seriously offensive. But those are the social constructs. Those are the parts of the background that we work
yes,
within. Yeah. So a
yes.
man shouldn't cry. A man shouldn't say I'm broke. A man. Okay. So what do we stand to gain from these explorations? I mean, have you had feedback from men on your book?
I have, and all of them have said. All the men who gave me feedback have said that it's spot on. And in fact, they said that in some cases, when their wives read it, their wives said, "I understand you better because I've seen these things that you don't say, and so I understand even with the reason why you don't say those things. But that understanding will then set the stage for you being able to feel free enough as well to be open to me about how you really feel, because there's no way that I will know. But this understanding gives me an insight into why you don't do the things that I expect you to do, that are under that whole social construct of how a man should be, or the so-called masculinities. So I have,
I Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, that's it.
Okay, okay. There's something I learned recently, and it's called a psychological androgyny, and that's
Hmm.
not to do with it's not to do with the physical androgyny. It's the fact that if you look at the Bible, it says male and female He created us all in Genesis 1, right? And then
Yes,
you look at the I think it's a Chinese or Japanese. I think it's Japanese Chinese that have the yin and yang, the
yes,
elements. Yes, so they see things in like everything has its female and has its male, and everybody. So it's a cycle. Like in your mind, there'll be parts of you that want to cry. There'll be parts of you that want to be strong. There's some people who would react to things in a certain way that would ascribe to men, and men who react to things a certain way that would
yes,
ascribe to women. So there's that as well. And I'm sure all of us who went to school in Nigeria and some outside Nigeria
yes.
would know that whole concept of Boboko nice that really wasn't treated very well, unfortunately.
Hmm?
He was a nice guy. He never tried to take advantage of anybody. He drive you to anywhere I mean, he'd just be a nice guy, but people didn't like the nice guy. They went for the bad boys. That's another
Yep.
bias that we need to look at. Yes, yes, yes. So, well, the Boys to Men Foundation is a not-for-profit. We established it in 2017 and it started operations in 2018.
Yep.
Guys, you can follow the Boys to Men Foundation online, you know, and you can also follow them on Instagram. I'll put the details, or you still help me put on the details. And in your words, you say you're dedicated to supporting boys and men to become their best selves and so
Yes.
positively impacts the communities in which they live. Okay, I'm going to trouble you a
Yes.
little bit. What is this best self that we frequently talk about?
That's a good question, and different people might come at it from different ways. But for me, I think there's a core in every human being of who we are, and our lives or education is making us the possibilities that we have as human beings. And our life's experiences are supposed to distill that best self, but very often they don't, because we don't think about those things that way. We have our biases and learned behavior that interfere with that ability to take from a negative situation the positive lessons or the outcomes that should come from it. And so that best self I'm talking about is to see everything that happens in your life as being meant to happen. And so to ask yourself, what do I extract from this experience? So to go back to the example I gave, if somebody slaps you, it's not just a case of why should they slap me? That when you ask that why should they slap me, not in the sense of anger, which we often do, but in the sense of what is the underlying reason? What can be the underlying reason? Did I offend the person? Is the person angry with me about something? Did I say something wrongly? Do I look bad? Is there something about me that reminds the person of some other experience? Because once we can interrogate those things, we might come away and feel that the circumstance of the slap was for me to think about the slap and think about the various situations concerning the slap, and therefore to come out from it knowing that it may not be about me. And that if it's about me, perhaps there's something in me that needs changing. But very often we just get angry and just say, oh, why should I be slapped? Very often we never think about, could we ourselves have occasioned it? And could we be responding in a particular way to the slap because of what has happened to us? You know, things that happen to us are very multi-layered. And one of my favorite words is serendipity. And serendipity is really just circumstances you haven't asked for that combine to make positive outcomes or to bring positive outcomes for you. But you have to recognize serendipity for you, for those positive outcomes. So for example, Julia, if you ask me to come and run a free program for you, and I'm thinking, why should I run a free program for you? And I won't run it. Supposing having run the program, if I had agreed to run the program, I would have met people who would introduce me to other people from whom I would then make income. So it means that I didn't recognize serendipity in your asking me, because I was just thinking of why should I do it for free? And I think it's important. So it's to that point as well. We have to look at the reasons or consider that there's a range of reasons for which activities occur in our lives, and to always just take the positive point of view. So if you ask me to run that program, I would run it for free, because I'd be saying, one, it would be out of love for Julia. Two, in a real sense, it costs me nothing, because I put a value to my knowledge, yes, but I could also say it's for a friend, and that's the value, therefore, that I put on it. And then thirdly, who knows, it might be a route to something. You know, so there's so many reasons. So you have to walk recognizing serendipity. And in the same way, you have to walk recognizing that everything that happens to you is meant to change you or to help you become that best self, so to speak, the best you can be. You know, for those of us who are Christians, we are called to be Christ-like. What is Christ-like? Isn't it becoming the best you can be? It is. And, you know, if you put those things together, that's really what it is. To help a man to look at himself, to look at his reactions to things, to ask himself why he's reacting, and to therefore, if he's reacting in a way that does not benefit him or anybody else, to change that reaction so that it becomes a more positive one.
I guess for me, it's also the change that is very important, because bring out the best self, and then the other part is positively impact the communities in which they live. And I'd say the smallest community would be the family, But what on earth could be the
Yes,
positive
absolutely.
impact of slapping your wife? Or hitting your children? What on earth would be the positive impact of you being that person that as soon as you come into the house shuts down because everybody's scared of you? And then
Absolutely.
it takes a lot of unfolding reflection, for you to get to that point where you see this is my issue. This is all me. It is not my wife. It is not because she cooks okra soup instead of the egusi, which I had in my mind, but I didn't tell her. You know, it's not because my son came back with an F in further maths. Is it because I am reminded of the fact that I didn't do well in further maths? Do you think we can get to that point of vulnerability with
I
men
think it's
and women?
I think it's a process and it takes time. But because again, I've journeyed a bit in my life and I have adult children, so that presupposes a number of things. And in on that journey, I have had to adjust the way that I think. And I remember at some point I just said, I just thought to myself, I wish I could go back to the innocence of earlier years, but that would miss the point entirely. Because the point of the experience is to have the experience and to learn from it in a positive way, not to stay unknowing, because innocence is about unknowing sometimes. So you can choose to become innocent in your knowing. That's a deliberate action. It's like agape love is deliberate. I don't really like this person, but honestly, I'm going to do the best that I can do for this person because of agape love. So it's the same sort of thing. And I think that, so one of the things that came out from our recent conference, as you know, was that somebody came up to me, a man, he said to me that when he listened to the young people talking, he realized that he was guilty of some of those assumptions. And the specific example he gave, he said, when he and his wife get home, they get home together. He says he goes and just chills, and she goes into the kitchen to cook immediately,
He's a
and then
lucky man.
serves him food. That was a very self-centered thing that he was doing, and that he would try that when they both come back from work together, he would go and maybe gist with her while she's doing those things in the kitchen, and then together they can bring out the food and eat. And I just thought that's exactly the kind of mindset change we're looking at. It's the kind of realization we're looking at. Another lady said to me, she said she always just thought it's a man's job though, let him provide. But she said again, after listening, she just thought I should walk this back a bit, that circumstances are changing. And perhaps we should combine to achieve what we want to achieve. So you see, for me, it means that the things we do when we run these programs, as long as people come away and are thinking about these things, then there's hope. Because from the thinking will come an attempt to do. Because the mindset change precedes the attitude change, which precedes the behavioral change. And so it's a three-pronged approach. And as long as people are making these comments to us, then it means that we're achieving what it is to achieve. And it means that we're achieving it not just for men, but even for the women who attend our programs.
So it's a mindset shift, which affects the attitude, which affects the behavior.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then we go again. We look back again to make sure we
So influence other
reinforce.
people.
Yeah.
You influence other people, and then it becomes ripple effects. And then more and more people begin to think differently. Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. It's true, and then the conversation starts, and then we move forward. It'll take time. But the thing is, we have time. We have to have time for the things that matter.
You have to have time, yes, and this really does matter because, as I said in the beginning, before everybody joined, we can't continue this love
Actually,
wars. You know, we can't continue the love wars. I
yeah.
mean, these are our brothers, these are our husbands, these are our fathers, our uncles, our cousins, our nephews, people we work with, and we have to work. We were all put on this earth to work together and dominate the earth together. There's not a part of the earth that men are supposed to do and women are supposed to be in another part of the earth. I mean, listen, let's take the culinary world. It used to be like women were dominating that. What's happening now? Men are there. Men are dominating. We have chefs in Nigeria, male chefs who are doing extremely well. We have male makeup artists. We have people, male men who do your hair and it looks fantastic. And we have women who can change the tire on a dime like that and can fix your engine. So the gender roles are shifting, and I think it must be a bit more difficult for the millennials and Gen Zs because it's going to shift a whole lot more. It's going to become a whole lot more fluid, you know, and we still have to work together. So I'm a firm believer that. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Make a point to what you said about culinary skills, because whilst men may be chefs, most men think that women should be cooking in the house. So the man can be a chef cooking, you know, doing his work as a chef and thinking that his wife should be cooking in his house. It's a very interesting conundrum. But I just thought I should just.
It is, and then we would encourage them from the. You know, I tell my friends, a wise friend of mine told me this years ago, and I will share it with everybody. It says, start the way you mean to go. In a relationship, start the way you mean to go. So if you're not that woman who likes to cook all the time, please do not posture as if you like to cook all the time. We weren't born with that label, chef, cook. You know, we weren't born with that label. You know, so start the way you mean to go and have these conversations. They might seem uncomfortable at the beginning, but we have to have these conversations, including how many children, how are we going to parent, how are we going to do things, you know, how are we going to do things together. On vacation, are you going to go alone? Even the boys' nights out. There's so many things we can talk about. And I think as women, as a woman, I have been in a space where I've heard men talk about things as basic as, okay, we're in business together. How will our wives relate to each other? Things as basic as that. Well, we women kind of say it's gonna be okay. We're gonna be on our knees and pray and do vigils, which are all very good. But we need to have these uncomfortable conversations, especially for the young women and men. Well, millennials right now, and they're taking over. And the Gen Zs, that will be my daughter's age, teenagers, you know, because what they see and what they appreciate in life and what they expect in life, very different from us. Very different from us.
Their expectations are a bit more for themselves. I think that they're a bit more self-centered, I think, and I think they think to themselves as well, more than we did, that I have one life and I owe it to myself to achieve whatever I want to achieve. And please, you can be my partner in achieving it. But if you're going to be an obstacle, then perhaps we're not meant to be together. You know, that's just their point of view. And it's not a case of let's not cooperate. It's like, yeah, sure, let's cooperate together. Let's not what you want, as opposed to, you know, what we want. And I think that's very healthy. I think it's very healthy because it means that both parties have a chance to have a really full life.
Yeah.
You know, people doing what it is that they want. Both parties understanding that, oh, I have our life together. I have my life as me that I was, you know, before I met you. And then we have our lives with our children. People often think it's just one life. It can't be. The human being is so complex and so multi-layered that you just can't be one thing. We must explore those different sides of us in many ways. And I think that's the awakening that the millennials and Gen Z in particular are coming to, that they're not incompatible. These things are not mutually exclusive. It's about, like you say, understanding, talking about it, and coming to a position and agreeing to disagree sometimes as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that any relationship where you don't have any disagreements and they are not having a relationship. You're just fooling yourselves. You know, I mean, you don't have to kill yourself, but you can. There'll be divergence of opinion. Yes, yes. So, next question: and I know this is not to put everything on your head, but just
as a matter of fact, it adds spice.
Sorry?
I said disagreements add spice.
Oh yes, it does, and it actually reveals those hidden layers, and you're like, oh, okay, is that where we're going? Yes, yes. Okay, so this is my question at this point. And guys, listen, thank you for joining. Thank you very much. We're about halfway through this conversation today. And, I just love my guests. They just come in and they bring it. They really bring it. So we, at the end of 1 hour, we actually don't want to leave. We want to stay a little bit longer. But we'll respect your time. It's the middle of your day. Now, Boys to Men is in Lagos. It's reaching some young men, older men, women in Lagos. And I know by the power of the digital world, it's also reaching a few more people outside Lagos.
Yes.
But how about the man in the village? Okay, I have a comment from a quote. Maybe we should let's just show that would be something that would be a good jump off point. She says, I thank you, Kwamba, for joining us today. Says, I wish this conversation will feature more on pulpits in our churches. Yes, 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 absolutely. And it goes to, how about the men outside Lagos? How about the women outside Lagos? How can we deliberately, intentionally reach them? And I'll tell you why. 2 weeks ago, I had a guest who is 31 this year. So she's a millennial, squarely a millennial. And she went through a process where her parents, maybe her father, I don't know which of her parents, did not want to send her to school, her and her sister, because they were girls. So these, what we would call hidebound, very patriarchal attitudes and views and actions are still live. So how do we reach? Is there a plan, or is it something that collaboration would bring?
I think that the way would have to be collaboration. But let me just say also that one of the things that I've realized, and I know you know as well, is that you can't do everything. And therefore, you have to choose what it is you can do. When we talk about a lot of these things and we try to help people, have you noticed that people don't try to help the middle class? They always think that they have it, that they have everything, as if the fact of being born and being educated is a crime, and that means you don't need any help. And so my answer would be two prongs. The first is that Boys to Men Foundation wants to influence the people who influence most of society by virtue of the fact that they're educated and they take the decisions that matter. The man in the village is not going to take the decision concerning policies about women. So we want to influence the men who will take those decisions in the future, who are taking them now, so that they will implement policies that everybody now needs to follow, that will spread to everybody in the community. So by the time you get a jail sentence, for example, for beating your wife, the man in the village will understand that when the first man in the village has been locked up because it's a law, every other man in the village understands that. It's like property. Okay, in some places, women can't own property, but there is a law saying that women should be able to. And it may take time to get there, but there'll come a time where if you don't allow a woman to own property, it may be a cause. There's some judgments have been made in favor of women already. And so as those things happen, things will change. So my focus is on that group that will make things happen on a broader basis. And we'd also be happy to collaborate with people who are working further down in the communities that we don't reach. But at this point in time, our focus is on the young people who will come up to position to influence things, and on the men who can influence things now. Because it's really about how do you achieve the most impact. It's like WIMBIZ, professional women, because so many other organizations deal with other challenges that women have. So for me, it's the same thing. So I'm dealing with a particular category of men that I want to change their mindsets and their attitudes, because they can influence thereafter what happens in other communities on a wider basis.
That actually lets me know, it sets the tone and lets me know, because this man cut across all cities, everywhere you can go. Yeah. So it's to reach that band of people who can make
Yes,
actually influence change. Okay.
exactly.
Okay. So the theme for this month, according to the UN, is break the bias for International Women's Month. Is break the bias. Let's talk about some of the biases against men, because men do matter. So let's talk about some of the biases that you have experienced, and then I hope our guests our participants will also chime in and tell us, share some of the biases. So, what have you experienced that men wish other people? I know they say men shouldn't cry. I see men cry all the time anyway. So that's not a big that's not a big one. But which ones have you met? Have you experienced?
Well, talking, first of all, men feel that when things happen to them and they're vulnerable, they shouldn't, as they're supposed to shoulder it, take it on the chin. I'm a man. And in many ways, we help them to promote that fallacy. And it has consequences. We talk of toxic masculinity, and we often talk of toxic masculinity in the context of men beating women. But that's just one face of it. What about the consequences on the men themselves? High blood pressure, depression, drinking, taking drugs. There are just so many side effects of the fact that you feel you shouldn't show that you're weak or vulnerable. So anything that happens, don't talk about it. And you're a man, you have to think about it. What is the best thing to do? And so even to ask your friends, you don't want them to feel that you're weak, because you're all men together, and you can't show that you're weak, so that he doesn't say to you, man up now, man up, no, only you, So all of those things affect a man and the way he thinks, and the level of responsibility, therefore, that he carries on his shoulders becomes impossible. He feels he has to care for his parents because he's a man. It's his responsibility when he starts earning and his parents have retired. He has to look after his wife and children. And for some men, my wife shouldn't work. I should be able to look after her. That's a fallacy. Then the children, oh, they're going to school. I cannot be seen not to be able to pay school fees. All of these things are a burden. So that's one, men don't talk. Why can't men talk? They should talk. Men also want to be loved. And very often, and it starts when you're young, when your sons, when fathers will be telling their sons, will be shaking their sons' hands, they won't embrace them. A lot of fathers don't embrace their sons. They don't embrace their children. Even if they their daughters, but their sons, it's like, what is embrace? What's that? Man up, jaw, and start from here. So don't be soppy. Even when they see their mothers or their wives embracing their sons, they're eyeing the women and thinking, don't make him soppy. All this embrace, what does it mean? Let him be strong. He's a man. He's going to be a man. Everybody needs love. And the thing of touch speaks in a way that words don't speak. So when you hug a person, the person knows. There's something about the hug that just makes them understand that they are cared for. And there was an exercise that was conducted once in this group that I was in. We were asked to hold each other's hands. You'd have a partner, and then to massage the person's hand gently. Honestly, it brought tears to my eyes, because there was a sense of, you matter. And so that touch is important for men to also have it. So we can't say you're a man, so you shouldn't have any issues with that. And then we feel that men should always have courage, step forward. There's the saying, to fight another day. You have to live to fight another day. So then when you have to run away to fight another day. So that courage has to be, you have to think before you step forward. So if there's somebody at the gate who shouldn't be there, wielding something, you're a man, you're going to meet. Of course not. You know, you have to stay inside your house and lock the door. In fact, lie down on the floor, under the bed, if possible, and tell your whole family to lie down on the bed too. Do you see what I'm saying? So, but there are different kinds of courage. That kind of one, there's no need to have that kind of, that one is stupidity. Then there's the courage of, all of us require courage. There's courage to speak when you need to speak. And that is not just for men, it's for women as well. There are times you need to stand and be counted. It's not just for men. Women too need to stand and be counted. So let's not be expecting men to always do those things. There has to be wisdom applied in all of those things. Men don't always have the answers, and we think they should have the answers. Why do we think so? Why do we think they should have all the answers? It doesn't make sense to me. They don't, they're human beings like us. We're strangers in this land called Earth, in this world. We're flailing about, trying to make the right choices, trying to evaluate things and decide which one should we, in the same, it's a human problem. So why should we feel men should know the answer?
It's the human race. It's a human race.
Exactly.
Yes.
Are they God?
Not
the future?
not the male race, the human race. Yes.
Human race. But I think we look at men as gods with a small g. And there's a poem that I wrote that talks about how we sort of are all listening, waiting for the man to pronounce what should be done and tell us the direction to go. Because he's like us too, wondering what to do. So why do we think he should be the one? I believe in the concept of first among equals, yes. But first among equals simply says that you acknowledge we're all equals, but there's one spokesperson. Suggests, therefore, all of us can contribute to the conversation, and then the first among equals will evaluate all our contributions, and then it doesn't say stand in front of us and tell us, oh, from my wisdom, let's do this. So some of those, those are some of the things that I feel are inimical to the well-being of men.
So we should talk more and cut each other some slack.
Yes, absolutely. We're human, first of all, and human beings are vulnerable.
Okay, this year, I think this year or maybe it was last year, I had reason to now sit with my daughter and read Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And I tell you, I was able to look at this from the perspective of, I could now understand what toxic masculinity was. And I could still understand because after my daughter read it, she was like, oh, Okonkwo was a horrible man. I was like, no, Okonkwo was actually a victim. Was a victim of expectation, his expectations, and the inability
society's expectations
and inability to reflect, because he, from the get-go, he was fighting the failures of his father, and he didn't want to be what his father was, what he perceived as his father being a failure. So that definition of manhood being that you own the barn of yams at that time, and I think now it's like you own a fleet of cars and you have a lot of money and you have houses everywhere. And hey, your wife wants to travel. Oh yeah, send her out with the children, etc. And you're driving muscle cars. So that was Okonkwo at that time. He was driving his own muscle cars, and he had muscle tops, and he had a whole barn of yams, and he had children. And he looked down on his son, who was can't remember his name, Obiefuna. He looked down on his son for being too gentle. And then he kind of liked Ikemefuna, and he liked one of his daughters who was strong. And he said, oh, I wish this was a man, then I could do so much with her. And it just takes me, when I was reading your book and extracts from your book about men, monologues and reflections, it said a man can be many things, but he is a vulnerable being nevertheless. Men are socialized to be tough, or at least act tough, and men's egos are built to resist vulnerabilities. But this has the opposite effect of making them vulnerable, because mental, psychological, and emotional rigidity leaves people at a greater risk of breaking. And I thought, Wow. This is how we get toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. I mean, I really would like to say that
Exactly.
just as we have the patriarchy, which can be toxic and controlling, there's the matriarchy, which is equally toxic and controlling. Both of them are groups of people who've gone out of balance. So guys, listen,
Yes.
I'm going to put this. I think everybody should try as much as possible to read this. You know, her books, Sounds from Silence, Musings, and About Men, Random Poems, Monologues, and Reflections. You know what? It's a great um, gift to give your sons. And also, Father's Day, we always think about what to give our husbands on Father's Day. This is a great gift to give them. And buy one for yourself. Leave his copy alone because he's not going to tell you when he's going to read this and cry by himself and say, "Oh my goodness, I wish, I wish." So, Ifeoma, how can they get a copy of the book?
Thank you for the promotion, Julia.
You're welcome.
But as you were talking, if I may, when you were talking about things fall apart and the names of Okonkwo's sons, you know, Obiefuna means your heart should not fail. And it's interesting because the one he liked, Ikemefuna, that means your strength should not fail. So I don't know why he's surprised about Obiefuna being such, because he gave him a name that is about heart. So, and heart presupposes, therefore, a gentler disposition than your strength should not fail. And I don't know, Chinua Achebe may have been intentional in using those names, because like when I use names as well, when I'm writing, I'm intentional about the meanings of the names. So he might have been intentional in giving those particular names, you know. So when a father gives a son a particular name, he should expect the characteristics of the name in that child. You know, that's and that's generally how it works in many ways. And that's why they say there's a lot in a name. And when you give names, you should be careful because it's as if you're coming to an agreement with the universe on how that person should be. So
I agree 100%. I mean, I didn't know this. I mean, I always say I'm a Calabar girl. You know, I don't know this. So this is another layer of knowledge for me to share with my daughter because I'm very, very intentional about her understanding these things and understanding that, you know, just because, especially with her father, I used to insist, I was never, and I'm never that mother that would do school runs. I just didn't like school runs, you know. And I told my husband, I said, you know what? I think this is an opportunity for you and your daughter to get to know each other every morning, every evening. You know, you spend time together. So now my daughter knows Fela music because her father likes Fela music. She knows Angie Stone. She knows jazz. I mean, she's introduced me to some of the music herself. You know, especially that they had one song together, which was I want to. I think it was called something by Kiko Masui. It's like I want to see my daughter, and it was like their song. It was their song together, you know. So I am pretty happy about that. I'm happy about that. Okay, we have a comment from Geraldine. Let's read it. She said, I love the way this session is an expression of compassion for both women and men and its emphasis on balance, exactly as nature intends. Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you very
intentional.
much.
We have it's the word that you use in.
What did you say?
I said it's the word you use, intentional. That is the key thing. We have to be intentional about the things we do.
Yes, we have
In boys and girls, if we want to change things, because parenting is a key part of it.
It is. It is. There's a comment on Instagram. I'm really scared, guys. I'm really scared to touch the Instagram before it goes up. You see, can you see the comment on Instagram? Sorry? Let me see. Okay. Okay, this is
In
from
my eyes.
Chinese Joseph. Chinese Joseph
Okay.
she says there's another bias against men. Once there's a rape situation, even when Chinese, okay, I'll just read it to the end. Even when the girl readily admits that she came on to the man, society will rather disbelieve the girl and put it all on the man. Chinese, I would say that once there's a rape, there's a violation, unless it's somebody who's crying wolf. But once there's a rape,
Yes.
even if up to that very point where before certain things physical take place, she has a right to say no. And even when it takes place, she can say, stop, I don't want to. Legally, you can stop, And I don't like to get into this kind of spaces in public because I do hold very strong opinions about this, you know. And it is a bias. A guy can be led on, truly. But if somebody says stop, I think that means stop. I think so. So can we just leave that so that we don't get into to
But if I may just
murky
into what you
waters?
said, the point for me is therefore, if men know there's a bias, it should make them more careful.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But as I said at the beginning, this is not about love wars. It is not about love wars. We want to live together. I'm somebody who takes a lot of cues from music, and this is an old song. That's how old I am, guys. I mean, that's how old I am. Timmy Thomas said, everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together? We can. We really can. We just have to make an effort. And as we wind down, we have 5 minutes left. So if you have questions, comments, please put them in the chat box. And I'd like to wrap up by quoting some lyrics from the music of James Brown. For the millennials, I'm sorry, you need to Google James Brown. For those who are my age, I'm sure you know the song. I want to say it says it's a man's world where it will be nothing without a woman or a girl. So let us for 1 minute try to overlook the allegation that James Brown himself tried to shoot one of his wives in public. It might be the truth or it might be an urban myth. I don't know. But how do we stop casting men as villains and women as victims? You know, how can
Is
boys
that the
to
question?
men. Yes, yes. Because men have that, if they're not villains, then they are the superpower. Then they are the all knowing
Yeah.
Voltrons, all powerful Voltrons. I think the way the media projects men and women is also a very big part of this. You know, I think so.
Yes.
Well, what do you think concerning the media, the music, the films we watch, the YouTube, TikToks? Yeah.
Everything, well, not everything. A lot of things portray women as sex objects. So they say that adverts, unless they define women in a particular way, they won't sell a product. So if there's a washing machine, you have a woman who is the one pointing to it as if it's only women who should wash. If it's cooking, you have only women who are the ones. And then when it's even equipment, you find a naked woman by a laptop or by a phone. What has a naked woman got to do with the phone? Honestly, and how come is it that because the naked woman is there, it makes it attractive to men to buy? Because there's a psychological thing going on there. Oh, so this beautiful naked woman, does it mean that when I have this phone, I can have this woman too? So the media objectifies women. And so it continues to promote that sense of a woman as a plaything. And even more recently, a friend said on the platform you're on, a friend said something that said that about the top earning female CEO used to be a man. And I'm asking myself,
Yes.
does it mean that she's the top earning female CEO because she used to be a man? So it's the man's qualities that she has that made her achieve that. And so we have to question those things. But I know that things start small.
Yeah.
We're having the conversations. Boys to Men Foundation is having the conversations. It is those conversations that will change mindsets. And one of the things I know, as you will also know, is that, you know, all the things that our mothers used to tell us about do this, do that, that you used to find irritating. Don't you find yourself telling your children the same thing? So clearly you
Some of
heard
them.
it. So as
Some of
this
them.
conversation, yes, you see, that's exactly the point. So as we're having these conversations, each person will take some of what we're saying and they will use it and promote it. And without intending it, we're changing things. We're already changing things. You know, just having these conversations. For each conversation you have on your platform, there's a takeaway that people have. And different people have different takeaways. And they all contribute to a changing of mindsets and thinking and the way we behave. I think the educational system.
If I give me a minute, I need to say goodbye to our friends on Instagram because we've gotten to 1 hour and I don't want Instagram to bump us off. So yes, so just thank you everyone for joining us on Instagram. Thank you very, very much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, all 23 people on Instagram. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. So yes, the more we have these conversations, the more something shifts in somebody, and that's very important. You know, we have to keep talking, and we have to keep talking in a balanced manner. You know, because I mean, my father may have been hard, but he wasn't an ogre. The things that I can do today. I mean, my father taught me how to change light bulbs and be handy around the house. You know, so I get married to a man who doesn't really like, he'll just like, oh, call Ogachika, or call this one. I said, I can do it. I can do it because my father taught me how to do it. And the first time he looked at it and he said, are you sure? I said, yeah, I know this goes there, the neutral goes there, the light goes there. And he's like, okay, do it, let's see. And since I didn't blow up the house, anytime he says that, wifey, you know.
But yeah. Julia, isn't that a difference? Change. Your father didn't assume certain roles for you as a woman.
No, he didn't.
And Claire,
he didn't.
Your husband didn't assume certain roles for himself as a man. And this is without even so everything that happens to us, when your father was teaching you, you didn't think that, oh, when I get married, I'll be changing bulbs. But hey ho, look at how it happened. And that's exactly the point I made about life and about the experiences we had in life. They lead somewhere. They take us somewhere. We may not see it in the moment, but they take us somewhere.
Well, I'll just take one. I'll take Elvira, thank you for your comments. We've read them. Okay, let me take this because I do not shy away from difficulties. She says, so men tend to be very controlling. I'll say some men. Maybe I think you wanted to say some men. I'll assume. Yes. So men tend to be very controlling, all in a bid to push the woman to achievements, so to say. Is it right that the woman cannot achieve her dreams her way? It must be the man's way because he believed he has a superior knowledge. Okay, Ifeoma, would you like to take that?
What I'm going to say to that, the first statement I'll make is that therefore it's important who you choose to marry. You see, you can't choose your father. Your father is your father. If he imposes certain limits and limitations on you, you take it. But that is why you will work hard in school. So when you finish school, you graduate, you get a job that allows you to be who you want to be without that. And when you've got that job, trying to be who you want to be, you therefore don't marry a man who is going to be like your father, who will also dictate to you. So whilst we're trying to change mindsets and let men see that women also want to be the best they can be and achieve their full potential, the truth is that we do live in a society that feels that men know everything, and that very often women also defer to men as knowing everything. You know, if my husband says something I don't agree with, I'm not afraid to say I don't agree. I'm not afraid to have the conversation. At the end of the day, we may do it his way, who knows? And it may be my way, who knows? But that's because I'm married to a man who is not afraid to have that conversation with his wife, who doesn't see me as, oh, Just do what I say. If I say sit down there, I hear men saying that they love their wives because when I ask her to sit down here, she sits here, and she knows how to fry my dodo. My goodness, isn't that the height of it? But
No. Well, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. People go through this. Yeah.
if the woman, if that's how she likes it, then it works for them. But when there's a problem is when she doesn't like it. And if she doesn't like it, then he would have showed those signs when they were dating. So if she knew she wouldn't like it, then she shouldn't have married that man. Like you say, this is me. Oh. This is how you, if you tell me to sit down there and there's a thorn there, I'm not sitting. Oh, I'm going to ask you, is something happening? Why am I sitting there? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the choice, we can't emphasize it enough. Choice of who you marry. So if you choose to marry a man who is very controlling, then that's the kind of life you've chosen. So if you don't want a controlling man, when you date a controlling man, don't say yes to marriage. Just know it's not what you want. And it may sound simple. I know it's not that simple. And I know it sounds as if, oh, I can say that because I married a man who allows me to be. But when I was getting married to him, I didn't think of that, I have to say. I was looking more at who he was. You know, my husband is a gentleman, 2 words, and also a gentleman, 1 word. And perhaps understanding that, it was clear to me, therefore, that if I wanted to be somebody, this gentleman and this gentleman was unlikely to be an obstacle in my path. So define what it is you want in a man sometimes. And it's not about looks, it's not about money, it's about the quality of who he is and what he represents in your life. And my father wanted me to be a medical doctor, which meant my father was a medical doctor. He had confidence in me. He felt that, yes, this is my daughter. I have a brother. He didn't ask him to be a medical doctor. It was me he asked to be, you know. So clearly I was never limited. My father didn't limit me. My husband doesn't limit me. And if he had, and if I noticed that in him, I don't think I would have married him. It was something that for me was something I didn't think of, but was at the back of my mind. Because I'm a person who likes many things and I get bored with things. So I like to do different things. So if you're going to tell me to just sit and do one thing, not going to work. So it's understanding yourself and therefore choosing who, like Julia, have the conversation before you get married. Don't let anybody be surprised.
And
just have the
during, and just
conversation.
keep having the conversation, because we forget in the course of life. We forget when your friends tell
Exactly.
you, "If not me, that thing, if not me," they forget.
Exactly.
So we need to keep having those conversations, not when
So
there's
to
a
know
crunch. But if I'm, we are kind of 7
we're
minutes, about 8 minutes now off the hour. But
okay.
yes, we're rounding up now. And I'd like to thank you very much. And Elvira, I'd just like to say, sometimes we understand the dynamic that sometimes women do feel powerless. Sometimes, and sometimes it's a real thing that they are powerless in the choices. But what I would encourage you is, start having that conversation with yourself and understand that nobody has a monopoly on superior knowledge. We all created equal. And Geraldine says it would have been great to see some male representation among us today. Well, Jerry, this is part of the issue. I specifically invited men, and I can assure you that, well, there was a man, I saw a man here, and there must have been men on Instagram, but they didn't comment. I assure you that some men are going to go back. I specifically invited more men than women for this. And these are some of the things we're talking about, getting people to be willing to engage. It's an ongoing thing. We've started the conversation. We can continue the conversation in a non-confrontational manner. It's a conversation, it's not a fight. You know, we want to understand that these love wars have to stop. We have to stop. These are people in our lives, and they're going to remain in our lives. So, if I'd like to really thank you. You've highlighted some of the
I cannot
biases,
hear
some of which
anyone
we
because my phone
women
has interrupted me.
um, unconsciously and maybe unconsciously
I can't
also
hear.
reinforce ourselves. So thank you very much. If I can hear you, you're muttering to yourself.
I can't hear.
Yeah.
I can't hear anyone. I can't hear
If
anything,
you can't hear
Julia.
me anymore,
You know,
I can hear
once
you.
you interrupt my
So let me say
this
thank
thing,
you. I
it
think
just doesn't go. I can't hear anything.
okay.
I can't hear
I
anything.
think
I can't hear.
okay. We can hear you. We can hear you. So
Once
I'll just say bye
you
bye
know,
and thank you very much to you.
I can't hear anything.
Okay, we
Once
can
somebody
hear you
calls me, it just
clearly.
doesn't work.
But I'll just say bye. I'm sure you can see that.
Bye. I can't hear.
Bye and take care. Thank you very much. Bye
Bye.
bye. Sorry about that. Bye. Bye. Bye, everybody, for coming. Thank you for staying this long and
Blackout.
thank you for all your
Sorry,
contributions.
can't
We
hear
really
anymore.
appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.